My friends, is it over for speedrunning on the website twitch.tv, owned of course by Amazon? Well, it could be, because today, seemingly out of nowhere, Twitch support on the social media platform X, formerly known as Twitter, tweeted out this: we're implementing a 100-hour storage limit for highlights and uploads starting 2 months from now, April 19, 2025. This won't apply to past broadcasts, VODs, or clips. And they go on to say less than 0.5% of streamers exceed 100 hours worth of highlights and uploads, and the content is less than 0.1% of hours watched on Twitch. Users will be notified. And they go on to say that, if you have more than 100 hours of highlights and uploads on your channel, that, go ahead and export them, put them somewhere else, or we will begin deleting highlights and uploads for you after April 19th. Isn't that nice and kind of Twitch? Now, what does this all mean, really? And is this a problem? Well, we see some tweets from speedrunners and content creators about this, and I certainly had a similar initial reaction. So let's read some of these comments. Ricky the Rixer, well-known YouTuber, writes, "You're literally ruining jobs for people like me whose goal is gaming and speedrun history preservation. Please don't go through with this. Video evidence of many historic records are going to be gone. You start as a gaming website, why do you not care about preservation?" So, there you go. Summoning Salt, of course, everyone knows Summoning Salt. "I really hope you reconsider. This is going to harm the speedrunning community so much. I know storage is expensive, but somehow YouTube is able to make it work. I guess a lot of us will move over there." Now, isn't that true? And even I initially responded and said, there's going to be so much speedrun lost media because of this, especially in the obscure games that only a handful of people have ever run, where the sole 100% completion is a Twitch highlight from 7 years ago on an abandoned channel. Now, that's just an example, but there were a couple of thoughts that came to mind when I first saw this of runs that I should go get and make sure don't become lost. And that got me onto the track of is this a big deal? Yes, but it may not be as devastating as we think. So the first video that I thought of, which I knew was only on Twitch, was this speedrun of the Mario Party 2 minigame called Sky Pilots, 48.00 seconds, done by True Faith Clemens and one of his friends. Just a fella, just a guy who, a bit of a speedrunner here and there in GoldenEye and other games, but not really someone with an online presence. Clem and Cook, as they would be called, as the pair is called when they're playing Mario Party 2. And Cook, while he has achieved some world records in GoldenEye, Depot Agent 24, for example, first person to achieve that record, and that stuff of his has been well archived. This Mario Party 2 minigame record was not. It's only on his Twitch channel. This is someone I looked at his Twitch channel today. Last active 4 years ago, and this run was done 12 years ago. Now, this is someone who is very unlikely to go in and retrieve older VODs and upload them elsewhere to save and archive their videos. And as I was scrolling through this and looking at it, I realized, you know what? This guy does not have 100 hours of highlights or uploads on his channel, and therefore, it will be fine. Now, this isn't universally true, and we'll certainly get into that. But my initial reaction of oh my god, these obscure, rare speedruns that are only on Twitch, someone achieved years ago and highlighted them 12 years ago and hasn't signed in for several years, these are going to be lost. It's maybe not as likely as I thought. Now, it will still happen, don't get me wrong, but this sort of initial view that this is going to be some sort of VOD apocalypse, I feel has been quelled at least a little bit. Now look, what are highlights and uploads? Well, the upload feature on Twitch is something that very few people used. I've used like a couple of times. You could upload a video to Twitch in the same way as YouTube, but like you quickly realize that no one goes to Twitch to watch a recorded, pre-done video, generally speaking. And so this uploads feature is kind of odd, and Twitch probably put it in at some point to try to compete with YouTube and realized, yeah, this isn't working, and they're probably trying to pull away from this feature now. But highlights are very, very useful, of course, because if you're speed running a whole session, say, 4, 5, 6 hours, and you get a record or a notable run, well, you want to highlight it, of course. And, clipping didn't come around until, 2017, 18, 19, somewhere in there. And so anything done before then, if it was even a 30-second or 1-minute oddity that you experience when speedrunning a video game, you would highlight it instead of clipping it. I have a lot of these sorts of highlights, And these highlights are great because let's say you're a Mario 64 speedrunner and you went out there and played 10 hours a day and you finally got your 120-star run. You would highlight that section of a run. It would stay on your Twitch page. Bingo, bango. It's interesting that they're saying that VODs will not be affected. So the entire past broadcasts in particular, so the entire 12-hour session, if you have save past broadcasts, that doesn't count, but highlights do. It's a very sort of unusual decision. Now, I get it because, as Summoning Salt pointed out, storage is indeed expensive, and we'll get into this later as well. But you just wonder exactly what's going on and how many speedruns will be lost. Because how many channels are out there that do have over 100 hours of highlighted or uploaded content? And there might be more than you think. I saw this couple of tweets from well-known speedrunner and longtime Twitch streamer I Ate Your Pie, who says, incredibly awful change. What's the point of a collection if you have this? I literally have an entire playthrough of one game that's longer than 100 hours. Absolute huge L from Twitch. And Pie goes on to tweet a screenshot showing that he has 4,000 hours, 4,090 hours, in fact, of highlights. So Pie will literally need to offshoot 4,000 hours worth of videos if he wants to save them. This is someone who's been streaming on Twitch for almost 15 years now. Kind of hard to believe. That's a lot of highlights, a lot of videos, a lot of VODs, a lot of data that's very, frankly, difficult to move around and find a solution, a place to put it. And I've seen a few other people tweet out their screenshots of this. It's a new kind of thing on the Twitch dashboard that'll tell you how many hours of footage you have. People have a few hundred hours and they're going to have to do something. Now, I looked at mine and I kind of had a sigh of relief. I have 109 hours. And so I only have to delete 9-ish hours to be okay. And that should be doable because a lot of my highlights are old Speedlore episodes, which I have on YouTube. I have even better edited, cleaner versions on YouTube, on this channel and on the Speedlore channel. And so for me, it's not going to be a huge problem. And I generally have a lot of my stuff saved to begin with because I can be a little bit of a digital hoarder, and I realize the fallibility of these platforms. They may not be around forever, and you got to preserve your data. And I think for a lot of us, this will serve as a useful reminder to be careful and preserve your data and have backups of your videos, maybe on multiple platforms, if not at least on some hard drive somewhere, maybe in cold storage. And this is why other platforms are useful. People get kind of fussy about other video platforms, but there are a number of them out there, and it can be good to mirror your content one place or another. You never know. It almost feels as if we've been hearing about this asteroid coming for Earth, and it almost feels like this Twitch VOD apocalypse asteroid is now headed for all of us. And you never know when one platform might go down or be destroyed, God forbid, and you might have to put your stuff elsewhere. Now, I'm reminded of another situation that took place, I want to say around 2013, and it actually ended up being a confrontation on Reddit, of all places, between CEO Emmett Shear and probably the speedrun leader or most visible speedrunner at the time, who now goes by the name Narcissa or Nova Wright. And the two were going back and forth on Reddit in an Emmett Shear AMA, if I recall correctly. At the time, I think in 2013, Twitch wanted to make it so highlights could only be 5 hours or less. And the problem was a lot of like Wind Waker speedruns, Skyward Sword speedruns were more than 5 hours. And so this was GTA speedruns as well. And so there was a lot of discussion like, hey, pump the brakes, Twitch, please. Because, you know, what are we going to do? Like, we would stream these sessions, Wind Waker attempts, which were some of the greatest streams of all time, I will say. And if we get a world record, we're going to highlight it. And that's a very easy thing to do and leave it on Twitch. And it seems like Emmett Shear and co. did back off on that one. But now here we are 12 years later, and you know, it's a bit of the revenge of the VOD apocalypse coming for everybody. And this kind of thing, I would say, is inevitable because you think about just life and being alive, and it's kind of a constant battle of staying alive and around against the constant entropy of the universe. Everything in time will fall apart and return to dust and ashes and sand, you know? And it's your battle to upkeep your house and your body and everything. You know, I'm up here in the deep north of the Canadian wilderness, and every day I go out and start my car, -20, snowing, whatever, and at least brush it off and let it run for 20 minutes, because if you don't, you're going to be stranded without a car that works. And so you have to like upkeep these systems. And so in the case of, you know, these VODs, you have to upkeep your sort of archive and library. And this is certainly a good reminder of that. I remember for a long time, actually, the Twitter bio of Narcissa read simply, and this was it, and this is very prescient foreshadowing. It simply read, I'm looking for a long-term storage solution. And like, you read it at first years ago and it kind of sounds like, you know, what's going on here? You know, it's almost like tapping into the Matrix or something. But then you realize like, no, this is so true. Sometimes I look over my old speedrun recordings, video recordings. I just have hundreds and hundreds of hours on my PC. And it's like, sometimes I go and find them and they're very useful when I'm looking for footage for a video that I'm making. Other times it's kind of junk. And that's why you kind of don't want to throw it out. You want to keep it around just in case, you know, if you're a digital hoarder. And so these are certainly thoughts I think we've all had, or at least many of us have had. And, you know, it's always that kind of battle against digital entropy. What will we do? And, you know, you think about sort of the vast, uncaring universe always trying to destroy, or at Father Time will certainly bring you back to nothing. You know, I guess not to get into, you know, the Norm Macdonald versus Neil deGrasse Tyson debate on this uncaring universe. But in this particular case, Twitch and Amazon, in a way, are the uncaring universe. You know, they've kind of realized that these VODs are not making them any money, they're not very monetizable, and so why bother? Let's just get rid of them. There will be some speedruns that do get lost. There are people over the years, like myself and others, and even non-creators, just archivists, who have looked far and wide and archived significant speedruns. But there's always going to be things that fall through the cracks. And if this change does go through and Twitch doesn't, back up on it and withdraw it, there will be some bits and pieces, some legendary speedruns and highlights that get lost. And it is a huge shame. And a lot of it is just by virtue of the clipping feature not being around until a few years into Twitch's existence, because many of these highlights would have been clipped instead. And so it's a bit unfair that Twitch is deleting highlights but not clips. Alas, what can you do against such a uncaring behemoth like Twitch and Amazon? But do your best, back up your stuff, and upload it, archive it, and keep it elsewhere. The last thing I'll say is, this kind of got me thinking of like, do we almost need like a not-for-profit library, like the Speedrun Archives, like a very intense, almost physical location with terabytes of hard drives and storage? I was thinking about the National Film Registry in America, where they take films that are notably significant and make sure there's a copy preserved strongly, cultural or film cinema significance, And there's really a great list of films that the U.S., it's an initiative of the U.S. government, takes very seriously, to pick like 20 or so films every year and say, we're going to make sure these ones are preserved as far as we can. Obviously, you could think you can do your best 10, 20, 50 years in the future. But what about thousands or tens of thousands of years in the future? Can we preserve everything? And maybe not. But certainly in my lifetime, I can try to preserve a lot. I know that most of my speedruns I'm able to preserve, and I just hope that others who are maybe shocked and alarmed by this decision on Twitch will be able to preserve their stuff as well. But hey, that's that update. Back up your speedruns. Maybe check out some other platforms as well. Maybe, hey, give me a follow on some of these other platforms if you wish. It's always a reminder. You never know what's going to happen to any platform. But with that, my friends, stay true. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next stream, video, or fireside.